Wade, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate the time.
So, Wade, let's start with your story. What's your story? How'd you get into insurance?
Yeah, so like everybody else that gets into insurance, you actually kind of fall into insurance. No one plans on being an insurance agent when you're a small child, right? You always want
to cut you off real quick. Have you ever seen? Oh, dude, what's the guy's name? He's like a dude from the '70s. He is like this guru. Eric, do you know who I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? This guru from the '70s, long hair, all into philosophy. Oh, freak! It's right on the tip of my tongue. Oh man. Okay, when I remember him, I'll tell you. I'm gonna send you the clip though.
Thinking about getting into e-com, you are now a retailer, right? You're selling a product, you need general liability insurance, you need product liability coverage. When it gets really necessary, you start doing, I'd say, what is it, $50,000 in annual revenue?
Yeah, which is like $58 a month, or a day. So
yeah.
50,000 annually, 57, 80 cents per day.
Yeah.
So if you're doing more than 50 bucks a day, this is critical.
Get it done. Don't push it aside. Don't push it off. You think you're saving a few bucks here and there. In the end, it's going to bite you because something happens with one of your products. Consumer gets hurt. Little child swallows something. They die. That's where your product's liability comes in and plays a huge role to protect yourself, your business, your assets, all the wealth that you've built up since then.
So what about the claim that most guys that we talk to make where they're like, oh, dude, I'm just the retailer.
Yeah.
I don't even touch the product.
Yeah.
I don't see the packaging. Some other guy makes it for me in China, ships it. Mm-hmm. So that's on them.
Yeah. I love that question because I just dive in there, right? So my first question is, who's going to get sued first? So the person that bought the product knows you as the retailer. So what happens? Who do they sue? Do they sue the manufacturer over in China? They don't know who that is, right? So they end up suing the e-com guy, the retailer. They went online, they bought it from them, and they sue that person first. So let's say you're not liable for anything. Okay, well now you're brought into a lawsuit. Now you have to pay for an attorney to defend yourself from the lawsuit. Those are defense costs. Defense costs are inside of your general liability coverage. They're protected, okay, or it's included in your coverage. So now instead of paying $75,000 out of pocket, $100,000 out of pocket, again, your liability insurance kicks in and protects you from that lawsuit.
So let me just reiterate this because I think maybe this is an important part that a lot of people don't realize. Once you start making money, you're going to be sued. Like, it is the rule of law in America. It doesn't matter. I had an old guy I used to work with, and this is what he used to say to me, and it just struck. I did a lot of work with Israel back in the day. He was an Israeli. This is what he used to say to me. You can be right all the way to bankruptcy. And what he means by that is he doesn't care if he's wrong. If you can be right and he can be wrong, but he will still sue you until you are bankrupt. So what that means is a lot of people think they have GL so that if the hoverboard catches on fire and it burns the house down, well, now you don't have to pay for the house. But the real value, from my point of view, with GL is that if you get sued, you're not paying the attorney's fees, your insurances.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah. And this is not blanket coverage. You get sued for anything, and obviously general liability coverage kicks in and protects you for anything. There's obviously insuring clauses in there, so you have to understand that. And we can have a conversation about what it actually protects and how it kicks in, or how it's triggered. So yeah, your general liability kicks in and protects you from those defense costs, attorney fees, and I think average costs are $75,000 to $100,000, something like that. But in the end, if something actually does happen, then it provides coverage for those incidents. The other thing too, okay, let's go back to the e-com thing with they don't touch product, they drop ship it directly from overseas. I get that question a lot. So I've had a lot of conversations about this. Again, coming back to, they don't know the Chinese manufacturer. The Chinese manufacturer is not likely to come to America to be sued by you. And you're not likely to go to China and go through the Chinese courts and sue them, right? Mm-hmm. Again, another reason to be insured for your e-com business. You're the only one that's going to be held liable for all of that stuff. The one thing that can reduce your exposure is if you get your supplies, all of your products from domestic suppliers. Though that means, when I say domestic, anybody inside of the United States. If those vendors are here, then they actually bear the brunt of that exposure. And one thing that you want to do is name yourself as an additional insured on their policy.
Interesting.
Normal and customary practice in our industry, absolutely.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but US law dictates that if the manufacturer is overseas and you are a retailer and you sell that, you are liable as the manufacturer. You are no longer the retailer, you are the retailer, but you take on the role of manufacturer.
Absolutely. You're the manufacturer in the insurance company's eyes. Because again, they're not going to go over China and try to subrogate against them. Subrogation means they pay out insurance companies. They go after the other company to get their money back. They're not going to China to get their money back. It's not going to happen. So you are now the manufacturer. If you design a product, you're the manufacturer. I don't care if you don't touch it or don't manufacture it physically yourself. If you design it, that means that you created the initial design and you're having a subcontract manufacturer do that manufacturing for you, and they're just doing it per your guidelines.
Even if you don't, so because we're talking about insurance, maybe some people are zoning out. So let me be clear here. If you are drop shipping from China, you are the manufacturer.
Correct. Yeah, if you're drop shipping from China, you're the manufacturer now. If you're designing a product and having somebody or company in China manufacture for you, you are the manufacturer. If you subcontract a design to a manufacturer here in the United States, you're actually still the manufacturer because you're designing the product. Okay, the only way you're not a manufacturer and you take on that liability is if you get your supplies, as a true retailer does, through a distributor here in the United States.
Interesting.
That's it. That's
Interesting.
the only way.
So guys, bottom line, no matter what, you need to jump in and you need to get an GL and product liability.
Yes.
Are there any GLs that cover product liability?
Yeah, so general liability, we typically just call it GL or general liability, and general liability often will include products liability coverage. Where you have to watch out is in your guys' industry especially is working with insurance agents that are unfamiliar with your industry. Mm-hmm. You'll go to your State Farm, you'll go to your farmer's buddy, that's your neighbor, and be like, hey buddy, get me a policy, I need coverage because I'm doing this.
And he's like an auto guy, but he's like, yeah, I'm gonna hook
yeah, oh yeah, I got you, man, I do your home, I can do your business too. And they have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. They'll get you a policy and they'll exclude products.
Huh.
That does nothing for you.
Interesting.
There's a few coverages in general liability that are going to be important, like copyright infringement and stuff like that, but products liability is a huge exposure that you guys bear.
So one of the big things too, because we're going to be, a lot of the people on here, probably a good half, dropship products off of AliExpress.
Yeah.
And they're, I mean, it's like basically hand in hand, they are committing copyright infringement because it's somebody else's product. The manufacturer's like, geez, they ordered 10,000 and then they only had to ship 8, so I've got 2 extra 1,000. I'm going to list it on AliExpress, and all these guys jump on and they start selling this product that is somebody else's. So will the copyright infringement coverage kick in? Like what do they need to be aware of regarding that?
You need to be unaware of what's going on.
Okay, gotcha.
I say that because in insurance, there's a lot of clauses in there that say specifically if you are aware of any circumstance that could potentially bring you into a lawsuit.
So prior knowledge.
Prior knowledge, it's excluded. Mm-hmm. Hands down. You're not going to get any coverage. So you go into it saying, yeah, I sell through AliExpress and I know that they have extra stuff. Yeah, it's kind of a gray area. So
better to just not even know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do this. Just have no idea.
Gotcha. Okay, so what about the people that are doing now $1 million to maybe 15 a year?
Yeah.
And shipping worldwide.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because as I've spoken with people who have been in e-com for 10, 15 years, they really start in the US, then they'll be like, well, heck, I'm going to hit Canada too.
Yeah.
Then they hit Australia, then they hit England, they open up to Europe, and then eventually they're like, you know what? I can get my CPA, my cost to acquire a customer is way cheaper if I just go worldwide.
Yeah.
So they start shipping worldwide. They're doing maybe $1 million or $2 million a month.
Yeah.
What is critical for them?
Yeah.
Because it's really easy, especially if, I know some of these guys maybe live in Brazil, they live in, a lot of them from South America, some of them over in Europe, and so it's kind of like, I'm selling into the US, I'm selling worldwide. If they come after me, I'm just going to shut my site down, disappear, and then pop up somewhere else.
Yeah. From my standpoint, I won't talk about the disappearing part, but from my standpoint, how I see it is you have 2 different approaches, and I'm not sure how all of your e-com guys work, but let's say you actually have distributors overseas, and you're selling through distributors. Often those distributors won't do business with you unless you have what's called a worldwide coverage endorsement. And what that means is that if there's an issue with your product or a general liability coverage issue and there's a claim that comes up, that they want that insurance company to be able to protect them, your business, in the country where the lawsuit is generated. Okay, so worldwide coverage endorsement. If you're selling direct to consumer all over the world, you really don't need that coverage. That consumer then has to come to the United States and sue you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can still have coverage. Your general liability coverage, it actually protects you against, in the United States, its territories, which is like Guam and Puerto Rico, stuff like that. So be aware of the type of coverage that you have, whether it's just the United States, if it includes other countries, if it's actually true worldwide coverage. There are a lot of degrees of that coverage across the country. Okay, as you continue to grow, this is really critical to understand. Smaller businesses, less exposure, less revenue, less products out in the marketplace. The larger you grow, that means you have more exposure. Your premium is based on your revenue, because more revenue means more exposure, more products in the marketplace, more potential for loss. So as you continue to grow, that means you have more risks, which you need to identify. As you identify those risks, you need to understand how you're going to protect yourself from those risks and how you're going to finance your risk. When I say finance risk, insurance is a type of tool to finance your risk going forward. So as you grow, you have different risks. One of them now is products liability. Your next risk that you really need to worry about as you continue to grow is the data that is processed, all of the different transactions that you guys have. A big misconception in the industry is that you guys, again, are not liable for any of the data out there, which is completely false, right?
So let me just put a plug in here. Shopify, ClickFunnels, Builderall, WooCommerce, this applies.
Yes.
It does not matter if you're using their third-party system. So having said that, bam.
Yeah, exactly. And merchant processing companies too, right? They're all of them. They are concerned if they have some type of issue with their software, they are going to be liable for their client data, which is you, the e-commerce business. They are not liable for your client's data. Does that make sense? They're processing millions of transactions, probably daily. They cannot be liable for all the data out there. So they actually, if you look at your contract, you read that today, open it up and go through it, find the clause, look at it, they're gonna say in there specifically, they are not liable for any of that kind of stuff.
So let me give an example. You're selling some sort of widget and you start selling enough where you start sending your CSV file of that widget over to China, they're gonna ship it out. You eventually get tired of that, so you have a VA doing that. The VA forgets to delete the columns that has certain identifying information, which it's going to be in there regardless because it's name, address, phone number. They forget a few other things, they have that in there. All of a sudden, that Chinese vendor, something happens, their email gets hacked or it gets thrown up on the Pirate Bay or something like that. Now you've got a huge issue, and if you're like a California company, it's like a nightmare. I used to do business in California, huge issue. But so everyone is at risk for this. So this is cyber coverage.
Yes.
So keep going.
Yep. So your cyber liability coverage, typically the main thing is the personally identifiable information that can be exposed. So whatever that is, it could be a physical copy too. It could be actual papers. I know you guys are all online, but I'm just saying what if. I had an issue with a client here locally in Utah, and they had a bunch of W-2s in their safe. Safe got hacked into, W-2s were all stolen, like 150 of them, right? $300 a pop. I mean, it kind of adds up pretty quickly. Wow. So you got to keep that into consideration.
So like you have to pay. It costs something like $220 to $300.
Correct.
Per
record
that is out there.
Yes. Yeah. So
and there's an argument to be made that if you send a CSV file non-encrypted, that it's already out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They could literally go after you for that.
And something like that, for example, I don't know every law in every state, but each state has their own laws about the notification regulations for if data is actually sent out there. If you even believe that data has been stolen or taken, whether or not anybody has been affected by it, certain states demand that you actually go through the process of remediation, notification, and credit monitoring.
But you have to pay for it.
You have to pay for it out of pocket, $220 at least on average per record. So you have thousands of these records, right? And it's not just credit cards and social security numbers, it's a name and address. That's it. That's all they need.
So if you send your customer data over to your vendor and one of the customers find out, they could go after you by saying that their info is now public. And let's say you have 1,000 customers, that's $220,000 that the state would impose. You pay for credit monitoring, salvaging their credit, all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
And cyber coverage protects you.
Cyber coverage.
Shopify does not protect you.
No, absolutely not. And to be honest, cyber coverage has going to come a long way. It's been around for about, I want to say 13 years now. In the beginning, like all things, just like, for example, electronics, super expensive in the beginning. They start getting lower and lower and lower. Cyber liability covers the exact same way. It was relatively expensive. I think it was a turnoff in the beginning. And now you see a lot more hacks, right? data breaches. You got the Home Depot and Targets of the world. Everybody's being affected by this. And we all see the big companies and we hear about the big companies, but what people don't realize is that more often than not, the smaller companies are being affected by this. Okay. Other things that cyber liability coverage protects you from is ransomware. Everybody's familiar with ransomware. They go in there, they hack into your system, they hold your data for hostage, right? And they say, give me 10,000 bucks, quick 10K, they're out of there. There's nothing you can do about it. It's insane. Cyber liability protects you. You pay maybe, again, depending on your revenue and your exposure, anywhere from 800 bucks to $5,000-$6,000 a year for cyber liability, and it's going to protect you for those types of exposures.
So let's talk about costs now. So if you are a retailer that's doing under $1 million a year, you're looking at maybe $800 to $3,000 yearly, not monthly, for a GL with products liability coverage.
It depends on your exposure, but it's relatively inexpensive, absolutely.
And if you already have someone, just contact Wade anyway, and you can get them an accurate quote. Here's the difference. If you're just going to somebody and say, hey, I'm an e-com, get me insurance, it's just like what Wade said, they're just going to whip something up. But there's a difference between, it's just like saying, hey, person that has done Facebook ads in your lifetime, show me how to do Facebook ads, they'll show you something. Rather than going to someone who does $1 million a month all through Facebook ads. That is the difference here. And it's always better to prevent than to deal with the issue once it starts. And that's why, it's literally why we kept this on here, because one of the biggest areas that I saw, like when I jumped in e-com, I was like, dude, no one is insured. Blew my mind. And so let's talk a little bit about the really cool insurance that hopefully will be out.
Yeah, it's coming out.
Okay.
So I actually went down, I don't know if you want to put this in there, but I had a meeting in Los Angeles with an insurance company, found them. They're near the end of developing the product. It's going to be a business interruption suspension coverage specifically right now for Amazon deal vendors. In the future, we're going to expand it to include if you're marketing on Facebook or selling on eBay, whatever it is. So that's the idea. So business interruption for suspension. So if you're suspended on Amazon, turns out you were following all the regulations or something like that. You weren't doing anything wrong, that coverage would be triggered and it would provide for your business interruption, your loss of income.
So you're doing 10 grand a day, some competitor says, hey, this is my copyright, Facebook shuts you down for 5 days, they put you back up, you lose 50 grand. This insurance coverage will kick in that instance and pay you your revenue loss.
Yeah, so what you want to do is, well, I'm sure we'll get all the information, all the people that are going to be attendees. We'll have all that information on file, and then we'll be able to send that email out with a link for whenever that coverage is ready. It's supposed to be online. It's supposed to be, you'll be able to get a quote online, so it should be pretty slick. Yeah. So
awesome.
the insurance industry is evolving right now. There's a huge shift to transactional processing. In the past, it's been very archaic. It's been a paper process, very, very manual. The cyber liability coverage that I'm working on with an insurance company, they're near the end of developing an online product where you can actually go and quote online. It doesn't exist right now, so it's really exciting. In the end, you'll be able to buy it online. So for the time being, you can get a rate, and then it'll push to our agency, and then you'll be able to buy it near the end. But yeah, it's pretty exciting times.
Awesome. Hey, real quick, we also have people on here that are in Nutra, selling creams, lotions, pills. Some of them doing a lot, some of them maybe doing 10, 15 grand a month.
Yeah.
What do they need anything other than simply GL and products liability? And the second thing is, if they're just an affiliate for someone else, what exposure do they have?
Good question. So are we talking about direct sellers for multi-level marketing companies?
No.
Different. So
they either have like their own skin cream, like they'll sell protein, for instance.
Yeah. And
so they'll sell on Amazon, they'll sell on Shopify, all marketed through Facebook. So then they ship the protein out. That's the first level. Second level is someone who's selling, like maybe testosterone boost pills, but it's not theirs. They're an affiliate. They're sending all the traffic. They're doing the actual sales part, and then the other company fulfills.
Okay. So the first question, I'll address that one, is it's just like any other company. You need product liability coverage. Okay. Skin creams, healthcare products, supplements. A lot more exposure in that industry. Obviously, the FDA does not regulate whatsoever any of the supplements out there. So there are specialty markets that insure those type of products. So you do need product liability coverage. Cyber liability is just applicable to you, all that kind of stuff. The second one is an affiliate. That's kind of an interesting topic. I've been working on that a lot lately, actually, with different, more direct sellers, but it's kind of the same concept. Your number one question is going back to that company, the manufacturing company or the retailer, whoever you're working for or have an affiliation with, to see if you're included in the general liability policy. You may be included as an independent contractor. If you're not, you can ask, hey, can you add me as an additional insured as an independent contractor to your policy? It may be an additional fee, but it's going to be cheaper for you to pay that than you to get your own insurance. So keep that in mind.
So there's a lot of people that just white label, they private label someone else's product.
Yeah.
What exposure do they have?
But it's your brand.
Right.
You're the manufacturer.
So what if it's a domestic manufacturer?
So what happens now is what I recommend to my clients that have that, and I have that experience, is you're a manufacturer still, they're the subcontract manufacturer.
Gotcha.
So you're subbing out the manufacturing to them. Both of you have an exposure. Both of you added each other as an additional insureds. When there's crap hits the fan, the insurance companies get to get into it and figure that stuff out.
Gotcha.
But that way everybody's protected.
Yeah.
Because if they're going off your design, you're the manufacturer, right? Going all the way back to the design process.
Interesting.
Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. But if they screw up on the design, now they are liable for it.
So there's a subset of people watching this that are selling CBD oil. Are you familiar?
I'm not familiar with CBD.
It's the non-psychoactive element of marijuana.
This sounds super high exposure.
So
yeah.
There's maybe 100
Yeah.
that I know of that are going to be on here.
Okay. So there's not an exclusive. There's a program out there. We actually looked into marijuana distilleries. Is that what they're called? It's not distilleries. Dispensary. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We looked into insuring marijuana dispensaries, and what I found out doing that research is there's one insurance company out there. It's a Lloyd's of London company.
Oh.
They created a marijuana dispensary program. It's out there. You can Google it. I'm sure I can access it if I need to. I haven't insured anybody that deals marijuana, but if we need to get it done, we'll get it done. But again, going back to knowing the industry, making sure you have the right coverage, your farmer's policy or whatever it is not going to protect you on something like that. All of the insurance companies out there, except for Lloyd's of London right now, are extremely afraid of the industry. It's relatively new. It's in its infancy.
Yeah.
It's been around for 2 years, right, when they passed a law in Colorado.
Yeah.
So you got to be aware of that. Don't just get some random policy.
CBD it's not like a Schedule 1 or anything like that, but everyone's afraid of it.
Yeah.
So, and I know a couple of these guys who are doing, a couple $100,000 a month with it.
Yeah. Get insurance. Figure it out.
Specific insurance through Lloyd's.
Yeah, there's a program out there, and again, reach out to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can reach out to them. Get we have to. I call it appointment. We have to be appointed with that program to get it done, but we can figure it out for you. I know it exists, and I've come across it before.
Okay, so we are going to list on the bottom here or underneath this video contact info for Wade. But Wade is going to have a page on ClickFunnels. There's going to be a survey you can go through, fill out some information so that he has an idea of who you are, whether or not you have insurance, whether or not it's sufficient. And then he can shoot you off a quote and help get you taken care of everything you need. Just to give you an idea of what type of person Wade is, I used to have a solar company, and I Googled the top solar insurance installer companies out there. And I sent off like 20 different emails. And Wade was the only one that literally drove to the office to meet with me. And I was like, dude, I'm setting it up with this guy. Seriously, dude.
Yeah,
no one else was like, oh, come down to our office, come down. And I was just like, and so like you're gonna get the coverage that you need, and he's gonna work with you, for you, as hard as he can. Is there anything that you want to let them know in closing with about insurance?
I think in general, if you have questions, talk to me. Talk to me about it. Make sure we understand the risks that you have. Let's identify those things. Let's cover your different exposures. There's a lot more insurance out there just beyond general liability, general liability and cyber, stuff like workers' compensation if you have employees, property coverage if you actually hold your inventory. Okay, you got to start thinking about all these different exposures and how you're going to finance that risk. It's really important to think that way going forward, especially as you grow.
So we were going to close, but this is a huge thing. Most of us have VAs, virtual assistants, overseas. So we can simply 1099 go through a third party so that it's not even direct with us.
Mm-hmm.
What about maybe domestic VAs, etc., that do a lot of the work for us? So a virtual team.
Mm-hmm.
You may never meet them face to face, but
mm-hmm.
you know they're in your business. Do you need workers' comp for that?
Man, that is the hardest question. I get it all the time. You know what I'm going to go to? I'm going to give you a couple analogies. One is companies in California, real estate agencies specifically in California. They are all 1099, but
Mhm.
they all provide workers' compensation for all of the 1099s, okay? Because they are working solely for that real estate agency. And if that 1099 gets injured while doing real estate, they don't have their own workers' compensation insurance, they don't want to put on their health coverage because they have a deductible, blah, blah, blah. Who are they going to go after? The real estate agency. So think that way. If you are disconnected from these people and you don't have that law in California, for example, if they're required to offer workers' compensation to these people, you may not need to provide workers' compensation because they are a true independent contractor. However, now comes into question employee versus independent contractor relationship with the employer. Okay, and again, per the state, it depends. The more control you have over that independent contractor, they are now considered an employee. If you tell them when to work, if you tell them how to work, if you tell them how to process, they're an employee. You are now required, most likely, to provide workers' compensation. Okay.
And I can't imagine that workers' comp would be that big for VAs because
No, they're
their
clerical.
risk is they're clerical.
It's cheap. It's extremely
Yeah.
cheap for clerical. You're talking, Utah is one of the cheapest states for workers' compensation, and I believe it's 12 cents per 100 of payroll. So do the math. I can't do it in my head.
Huge. That's good.
Yeah, super cheap. In California,
cheap.
I think it's like 60 cents per 100 of payroll. It's nothing.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so people who have virtual teams, etc., you got designers that work specifically for you, etc. It's different if it's an agency.
Yeah.
Like if they actually have an EIN.
Yeah.
But if
It's different.
yeah, totally different.
Just keep it in mind. Be aware of it.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Thank you. Wade, thanks for joining us on this session. So here's my plea. If you'll join Facebook and then join the EcomCon page,
Yeah.
because then people can find you.
Oh,
in
that's a
there,
good idea. That's a good
and
idea.
then they're gonna be messaging you from that page.
Okay. I like
Deal?
that. Yeah, deal.
Okay, cool,
Thanks, man. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
brother.
All right.
All right, have a good one.
Thanks.